April 1985. A cold night on Merseyside and tension thicker than the smoke drifting over Liverpool's rooftops. Two of England's fiercest rivals, Manchester United and Liverpool, are about to meet in an FA Cup semi-final, but not at Wembley, not at a neutral ground up the M6. No, someone decided to stage this at Goodison Park, right on Liverpool's doorstep. That decision would unleash one of the most volatile nights English football has ever seen. Before a ball was kicked, pubs were smashed, fans ambushed, trains stormed, buses attacked. Inside the ground, golf balls with nails hammered through them rained down on United supporters. Nobody was safe. And when the final whistle blew, Stanley Park became a battlefield. This isn't just a story about football violence. This is the story of a rivalry fueled by identity, industry, and decades of anger, erupting in one of the most infamous clashes of the 1980s. This is what really happened the night United and Liverpool met at Goodison Park. To understand why things blew up so violently that day, you've got to appreciate just how volatile the mid-80s were in English football. This was the era of casual firms at their peak, and United and Liverpool, they weren't just rivals, they were arch enemies, both on and off the pitch. On one side, you had United's travelling support, the Red Army, a huge mobile force known up and down the country. Intelligent, organised, unpredictable. On the other side, Liverpool's crews, the Annie Road mob, groups from Kirkby, Bootle, Toxteth. Fierce, streetwise, territorial. Goodison, of course, sits just over the park from Anfield, in the shadow of that deep blue half of the city. But on this day, the red half of Liverpool was mobilised. Every pub, every side street, every bit of pavement around Stanley Park had groups of Liverpool lads lying in wait, ready to pounce on any United supporter who drifted too far from safety. Inside the ground, Goodison's old steel fences, coated in thick anti-vandal paint, became part of the theatre. Liverpool fans tried to climb over into the United end, only to slide back down, covered in black grease, to roars of laughter and shouts of abuse. But the humour didn't last long. That same eyewitness account describes nail-studded golf balls being hurled into the park end, a sight so grotesque that even hardened lads were stunned by it. Now, I've been going to football for over 40 years, home, away, big games, small grounds, and I can tell you, even at the height of the trouble, that wasn't normal behaviour. That was something darker, something that hinted at how deep the animosity ran. The tension inside the ground seeped into the match itself. Jesper Olsen, United's Danish winger, was struck by a missile while trying to take a corner. Players hesitated when approaching the touchline, and as the match went on, the atmosphere grew heavier, like the whole crowd was holding its breath for the final whistle because everyone knew. Win or lose, the real danger wasn't inside Goodison, it was waiting outside. Hundreds of Liverpool lads had assembled across Stanley Park, determined to storm the routes back to the trains. Lines of officers, helmets on, truncheons in hand, were already forming defensive corridors around the ground, ready for the explosion they knew was coming, and it was coming. Because 1985 wasn't just football violence, it was political anger, unemployment, poverty and identity all balled together and wrapped in club colours. Two proud working-class cities who felt they had something to prove every time they met. The match ended, the whistle blew, and Goodison Park, a ground steeped in history, was about to become the stage for one of the most brutal nights of the decade. When that final whistle went, it was like somebody had flicked a switch. Inside the ground, people exhaled. Outside, the city inhaled. United fans were held back at the exits, partly for safety, partly because the police already knew what was waiting for them. They could hear it, the chants, the jeers, the cracking of glass. A low rumble of trouble gathering momentum. Goodison's exit gates were hammered by golf balls and bricks before they even opened. Some United supporters pressed themselves into doorways, others clung to the walls, waiting for the signal to move, but the police couldn't hold them forever, and when they finally opened those gates, the real battle began. United fans spilled out onto the pavement in small clusters, trying to stick together, trying to get eyes on where the danger was coming from. But Liverpool had the numbers. Hundreds of them spread across Stanley Park and the surrounding streets, different mobs from different parts of the city. And for once, they were all working together. The red half of Liverpool united, not to cheer their team, but to chase down their rivals. Eyewitness accounts speak about what happened next, running fights breaking out all over the grass, behind trees, along the park's pathways, even on the main road by the church. Those who weren't protected by police were fair game. Some United lads managed to form pockets and fight their way through, others weren't so lucky. Stanley Park that day felt like a maze of danger. You'd think you were heading towards safety, only to turn a corner and find another mob waiting. Police horses charged in, batons out, trying to break up waves of supporters. But the numbers were too big, too many angles, too much hate. One United fan later described it as the whole city collapsing on top of us. Another said he'd never seen so many people looking for a fight in one place. Even those on the buses weren't safe. Those infamous yellow and green coaches, supposedly a protected route, ended up being targeted, windows smashed, fans crouching under seats while bricks rained in. It didn't matter whether you were in the park, on foot, or on a bus, you were part of the melee whether you wanted to be or not. And here's the thing people forget. This wasn't a 10-minute scuffle. It went on, street after street, corner after corner, a rolling wave of violence that lasted long after the match ended. Some United supporters speak of walking miles out of their way, through back streets, along the docks, even heading in the opposite direction to the station, just to avoid the main routes. Some didn't make their trains, some ended up in hospital, some just disappeared into the city until it was quiet enough to risk moving again. For Liverpool's mobs, the adrenaline was sky high. For United's, survival instincts kicked in. For the police, it was one of the most difficult nights they'd had in years. Once the main bulk of United fans had been chased out of Stanley Park and funneled back towards Lime Street, smaller pockets of fighting continued to flare up across the city, and the story of Goodison that day became one of those were you there moments, passed down, argued over, but never forgotten. From the accounts we've got, 2 fans were stabbed that day, and 2 police officers were injured. In the chaos around Stanley Park, several United fans were beaten so badly they needed ambulances. When dawn broke the morning after, the violence wasn't just bruises on supporters or smashed windows on buses, it was front-page news. The tabloids pounced, the broadsheets followed, and once again, English football found itself dragged through the mud of public outrage. To the press, it didn't matter who started what. There was no nuance, no examination of the policing, no interest in how the game had been allowed to boil over. 2 of the country's biggest clubs had met, and violence had exploded. That was all they needed. For Merseyside police though, the questions were a bit harder. Why had a match of such intensity, a rivalry so toxic you could taste it in the air, been staged in Liverpool in the first place? Why weren't the routes to and from the ground safer? And how had golf balls with nails ended up inside a football stadium? Behind closed doors, senior officers were furious. One report later admitted that moving the game to Goodison had been a mistake born of necessity. Too few neutral grounds, too much fear of United and Liverpool meeting further south, but the damage was done. And as always, the fans felt the backlash. Across the country, police forces tightened their match-day operations, more spotters, more segregation, stricter searches. Away supporters herded like cattle, escorted from train station to turnstile and back again, whether they liked it or not. Ask older fans from either city about that day, and you don't get fuzzy nostalgia or joking bravado. You get a look, that slow shake of the head, a sign they still remember the fear, the adrenaline, the pure hostility that wrapped itself around Goodison Park like a fog, and yet, for all the blame, all the anger, all the broken bones, something else happened too. The story became legend. A dark one, a violent one, but a legend nonetheless. Whispered, argued, and retold in pubs from Manchester to Merseyside every time the 2 giants meet. And whether you see it as a warning, a dark relic, or a legendary away day gone wrong, the legacy of April 1985 endures. Not as a celebration, not as a badge of honor, but as a reminder of what this sport used to be like. Raw, unpredictable, tribal, and often terrifying. But bloody hell, how we miss it.